Hello and welcome back to another important, amazing conversation. This is Diverse Vibes and we're talking about issues that matter to young people. Straight today, I have another interesting person. We'll be talking about, 16 days of activism and exactly how does gender-based violence affect women and everyone. Hey, karibu sana, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Niko poa. Kuna mtu actually ameniuliza hiyo the since I started like
yes,
doing...
how are you?
Oh, I'm feeling good. Yeah, it's so nice to have you around. So please introduce yourself and also what you do.
So my name is Judith Atieno. I am a child advocate. I started mainly as a menstrual health educator back years. Like I'm sure by now it's almost 10 years in the space. But one opportunity led to the other, and now I'm currently a NairoBits youth advocate. Yeah.
10 years in the game.
Yes.
Such a long time.
Yes. You have to give back to the community. So I was like, I benefited from one of the programs, and then after high school, I started giving back to the community. So after that, I started to, learn more about what interests me.
Yeah. So basically, what we do here, we share stories that can inspire other people to be great. And just in the spirit of doing so, where did your passion for fighting against gender-based violence start?
So if you know an activist here in Kenya called Rachel, I think she's one of the people who inspired me, and another activist, feminist activist called Edita from Kibra. So I started going to these workshops that they usually held in Madare or anywhere else. And I just admired how they talked about women, how their women's rights are violated and such things. So I started reading books, finding spaces that accommodate me and my passion. Yeah, so one story led to the other and applying for a lot of opportunities. Every feminism opportunity, SRHR advocacy opportunity, I get in, from there you find another opportunity. Yeah,
true. And so you have been doing this for 10 years. What is that one missing component that if we can incorporate in the Kenyan system or at school we can get done with GBV?
So I think I will say first of all, GBV has been normalized. When you go to the community and tell them this, what you're doing is actually violence against a woman, and they make it a laughing matter. So it's not taken seriously. So if this education can be incorporated in schools, telling people the importance of consent, the importance of the privacy of space, boundaries and all that, because this is where people have started normalizing such violence. And when you tell them this is catcalling is actually violence, denying a woman an opportunity to spaces financially, psychologically, those are form of violence. So if we can incorporate all this learning everywhere, even in churches, because you go somewhere, people start telling you about a Bible verse that is saying blah 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 blah, it's total BS. But yeah, we need to do more on normalizing the conversation, even in the families, in the communities. All these meetings that are usually held, women groups, church groups, we should encourage.
So from the family setup, I grew up in this family where my dad used to tell us every single day, and he still does the same for my siblings, is have you ever seen me beat your mom? And I think like we grew up knowing that we have other ways to solve issues. If I feel like I'm being belittled maybe as a man in that conversation, I can resort to, let's say, taking a walk or going somewhere else. So what is it from your experience that is making young people as early as even maybe let's say 18 or 19 starting to view women as lesser people and even getting to an extent of violently, like becoming violent?
Yeah, so first of all, violence doesn't have to be only physical. If you're in a family where the man or the woman is constantly abusing their partner, that is also violence. It doesn't have to be physically. So you find a child growing up in such environment is usually affected. And when you go outside, like the circle of that friend that they hang out with, how is it affecting them as an individual? Most of the time, it's usually our society. You know, from the family setup. How is for example, your father treating your mother? How are your aunts and your uncles treating each other when there is family gathering? And when a woman talks out, how are they handled? Like, are they shut down? Is their family, have you ever experienced where your mother is being beaten up? I've experienced that, and since then it's like, you know, so there are two different kind of people. There's somebody who will learn from that and say, I won't do that to people.
Yeah.
There's somebody who will realize I actually have the power as a man because my dad did that to shut up my mom. So that means my dad had the power. So in some kind of way, the dad inspired this son. So they take it out there, and you realize that power, they were not educated that that is the wrong thing to do. It was normalized in their family, so they are normalizing it out there, and they don't have the source to, you know, correct them or anything.
Yeah, and as we celebrate, you know, the 16 days, or rather, you know, we advocate for,
Yes.
Basically it's violence against women. We are not about advocating for
Yeah.
that. So what do you think of gender-based violence, but not for men, like not for women, for men? Like,
so since we are advocating for gender 16 days of activism, we have to acknowledge that violence can also be directed to men, you know, and one thing that maybe people can support in it's educating themselves on the forms of gender-based violence. The men can also, they should not shy out. If they are also violated in any way, they should speak out. They should also advocate. If you are, for example, especially in the community we come from, we see a lot of gangs, like people just sit in Mtaani to speak the local language. So if you hear one of your friends like men talking, and you hear one of your friends speaking rudely or maybe violating somebody, and you know it is a wrong thing, the role of also the men is to speak up and educate people around them. That is so important. And if you can also champion for women. If you hear your neighbor being violated, if you hear your friends, your aunts, even the relatives, be open to be that person who create a safe space for people to come to you so that you can help such people. So you can also direct them to the hospitals, to reporting cases in the police force, what else? Just being there, creating the safe space for somebody to actually first come to you and open to give you that channel to open up and say your problems here.
As we wind up this conversation, can you speak to someone who, you know, basically, and maybe you can use this camera over here, and just speak to someone who is undergoing gender-based violence, a woman, during this, you know, time whereby we are trying to push as much as possible to, you know, ensure that we can get done with this thing in the next like 5 years or so. Speak to that person on what should they do.
Yeah, so what I can say is, first of all, it is not your fault that you're in that situation. Second thing is, don't be afraid to speak up. Third thing is, find a safe space or a safe person to communicate with. If you go to the police post and they don't hear you, find somebody who can help you. You know, there are a lot of free toll numbers that you can also call to seek help. There are also a lot of organizations that will do all the necessary follow-ups to help you. If you don't know, just find somebody the first person you can hold your hands and take you through this. Find those people.
Yeah. So definitely, thank you for that. Where can we get you?
So I'm in all social media platforms, maybe not all, but Yes, so matters about advocacy, find me on X, Twitter, at Judith Oliver, Instagram and Facebook, Judith Oliver, LinkedIn, Judith Atieno. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Judith. That was Judith, and we had an amazing conversation around, sexual and gender-based violence, mostly for women, and it has been a great conversation because this is something that we actually heavily do not advocate for violence. We are saying that we have other ways to resolve conflict, we have other ways to sort out issues, and it should never be around violence. Thank you so much for being in this conversation. My name is Alex Oburu, and it's a wrap.